end of the 2000s let us witness continuous battles that extended to the last race. We just had a year in which the drivers of McLaren and Ferrari fought to the end, and we pick up right where we left off, with one substantial difference. The big struggles and the different treatment received led Fernando Alonso to leave the working team after only one season, and go back to the team that made him great, Renault. Heikki Kovalainen, who joins Hamilton, takes his place. Ferrari keep relying on the duo that won both world titles, Massa and Raikkonen, while the runners-up in 2007, BMW Sauber, also retain Heidfeld and Kubica. We start immediately with the McLaren-Ferrari duel, and the English team appear definitely in great shape. The same cannot be said of Ferrari. In Australia, Raikkonen is out in Q1 due to a mechanical problem. Then, due to errors, he has an awful race which ends with a single point even if he does not reach the finish line due to an engine failure. It is domination by Hamilton, who drives in an imperial way while chaos happens behind. Massa also spins several times, one of which taking out Coulthard. Then he breaks the engine. Only 7 drivers see the checkered flag, which becomes 6 due to the disqualification of Rubens Barrichello. Behind the winner come Heidfeld and Rosberg, while Kovalainen is only 5th after accidentally activating the pit limiter during the race. A week goes by, but it seems like an eternity. The Ferraris dominating qualifying, and Massa takes pole over Kimi and the 2 McLarens in Malaysia. The Maranello cars seem ready to get a 1-2, but incredibly Massa spins and has to retire for the 2nd consecutive race. At this point, Raikkonen is left with a 20-second lead and wins over Kubica and Kovalainen, while Hamilton has a pole race and is only 5th. The World Championship is very balanced at the front, because in Bahrain, the top 6 positions are all occupied by the title contenders, but it's Kubica on pole, on Massa. The Brazilian starts better, and finally takes victory after a complicated beginning of the season, over Raikkonen and the 2 BMWs. Hamilton's race again is a disaster, losing 7 positions at the start and then smashing into Alonso, finishing outside of the points. This leaves Raikkonen leading at 19 points. Heidfeld is 2nd with 16, while Hamilton, Kubica and Kovalainen are at 14. It seems that Ferrari can even extend it, because a 1-2 also arrives in Spain, ahead of Hamilton and Kubica, with Raikkonen winning. The Iceman looks destined to repeat the success of the previous season. This, however, will be his last victory for more than a year. In Turkey, Massa takes pole and victory again, ahead of Hamilton, while Raikkonen and Kovalainen touch, with the latter coming out worse. Fortunately for Kimi, he will limit himself to 3rd place, trailing Lewis for the whole race without finding a gap. It is the 4th consecutive victory for Ferrari, and it seems that the streak can only extend in Monaco. After all, it is the most important qualifying of the year, and the front row is all Ferrari, with Massa at the front. The McLaren and Kubica follow. However, before the race, it rains, and it will remain in variable conditions for the entire 2 hours. Raikkonen starts poorly and is pit by Hamilton. However, the Englishman makes a mistake that will prove crucial for the outcome of the race. He touches the barriers at Tabak and has to box, but in doing so, he loads a lot of fuel on board and still comes out on 5th place thanks to the advantage he had. Raikkonen, meanwhile, is penalised for a breach of the starting procedures and is relegated to 4th. Massa, who has the race in his hands, ends up off the track at turn 1 and is overtaken by Kubica. But due to a safety car that regroups the field, Hamilton catches up and overtakes everyone when they have to stop. As if that were not enough, when the time for the 2nd stop arrives, Hamilton has to gamble. He decides to switch on dry tyres, and that turns out to be the perfect moment. which leads him to a comfortable victory over Kubica and Massa. Disaster strikes for Raikkonen, when with 10 laps to go, he bumps to the unfortunate Sutil in the fight for 4th place and scores no points. With this result, Hamilton takes the lead at 38, Raikkonen remains at 35, Massa's 34 and Kubica's 32, while Heidfeld remains behind at 20. A third of the season has just gone by, and we arrive in Canada. The previous year there was a crazy race. Can it be repeated? Apparently yes. Hamilton takes pole over Kubica and Raikkonen, while Massa is only 6th ahead of Kovalainen and Heidfeld, who opts for a one-stop strategy. On lap 16 there's a safety car, and the top 3 all come to the pits. It is Raikkonen who would come out in front, but the light is red. He cannot leave the pit lane. He has to patiently stop. Well, Kimi does so. Kubica does so. Hamilton does not. He does not notice the light, and to avoid hitting the BMW Sauber, he steers against the Ferrari. A sensational, embarrassing accident. A fatal distraction for someone hoping to become world champion. This leaves Heidfeld at the lead of the race, and with Massa being nowhere, it is a great chance for BMW Sauber to win their first race. Kubica overtakes his teammate and wins the race, contributing to a 1-2 and total scenes for the team. This even sends the Polish driver to the lead of the Drivers' Championship with 42 points, and BMW Sauber just 3 points behind Ferrari. Following the accident, Hamilton is penalised on the grid in France and cannot even get into the points. The race would be in the hands of Raikkonen, but he gets unlucky. The Finn breaks an exhaust pipe and is overtaken by Massa, who takes home another 1-2 for Ferrari and for the first time in his career is first in the World Championship. At Silverstone there is torrential rain. At Hamilton's home, it's Kovalainen who takes pole. Lewis, however, is in one of those days that leave you saying, wow. He overtakes everyone at the start, while the other title contenders suffer. He is basically the only one who keeps on track, and wins over Heidfeld and Barrichello. Raikkonen is 4th, while Massa last, lapped twice after an endless series of spins. Kubica is also out due to an accident. Hamilton wins by 1 minute 10, the largest margin in 13 years. This creates a tight situation. Hamilton, Massa and Raikkonen are joint in the standings after half of the season with 48 points each. Kubica and Heidfeld follow at 46 and 36 respectively. Four drivers in 2 points. It's incredibly tense. No one has so far won 2 consecutive races. But in Germany, Hamilton is once again in a world of his own, and his victory is only put to doubt at the middle of the race when a safety car leads all the other drivers to stop, while he remains out. The team thought he had enough fuel, but he didn't. This forces him either to stop later while everyone else would be out, and therefore overtake them, or build an enough big margin to stay in the lead. In second place, incredibly, is Nelson Piquet Jr., Alonso's teammate, who, starting 17th, stopped just before the safety car, which was very useful at the time. Piquet finds himself in the lead when Hamilton stops, but the Brit surpasses everyone for real and wins with a real proof of strength. In Hungary, we see the renewed strength of McLaren's, who lock the front row in front of Massa and Kubica. Felipe, however, overtakes everyone at the start and settles in the lead. Hamilton follows, but in an attempt to hold the place, he has a heavy lockup, which punctures the tyres a few laps later and relegates him to a 5th place finish. It seems all destined for a victory by Massa, but disaster strikes. 3 laps from the end, after a sensational race, Felipe's engine breaks. To pick up the pieces, surprisingly, there's Kovalainen, on his only career victory. Raikkonen is just third, while the BMWs are at the bottom of the top 10. They stopped developing the car to focus on the 2009 project that would turn out to be a total failure. Third consecutive victory for McLaren and a hard blow for Massa, but the Brazilian makes up for it. Hamilton is first at 62, but the Ferrari drivers follow at 57 and 54, with Kim in front, despite a recent streak of poor results. The BMWs at 49 and 41 will still be in the game. In Valencia, Massa takes pole and victory with a great performance over Hamilton and Kubica, while Raikkonen, after another poor race and a mistake in the pits, breaks the engine. There are 6 races left, and it is time to race in Belgium. Raikkonen here has won the last 3 editions, and needs a victory desperately that has been missing for 8 races to get back into contention. Pole goes to Hamilton, but in the race we start on intermediate tyres, and the Englishman spins within the second lap, leaving room to Raikkonen. The Finn leads comfortably for 40 laps, until, with 4 to go, someone decides that this World Championship has not yet seen enough. It rains heavily, but only in certain parts of the track. Spa, after all, is 7 kilometers long. It is easy for it to be dry in some places and completely flooded in others. Hamilton in these conditions flies. He catches up on Kimi and tries to overtake, but he goes wide and cuts the last corner. He would have to give up his position, but he basically does so for a matter of seconds and then dives himself back at the front 1 corner later. At that point it rains more heavily. The lapped Rosberg spins in front, forcing Hamilton onto the grass and lose the lead. Then it's up to Kimi to spin and return in second. Arriving at Blanchimont, Raikkonen loses control again and smashes into the wall, ending his race. Hamilton, as low as ever, comes to the checkered flag in front of Massa, while Heidfeld and Alonso, who box to fit the intermediates, recover a streak of positions. The Marshals, however, had a close eye on the battle and penalised Hamilton, relegating him behind Massa and Heidfeld for cutting the corner without correctly returning the position. A crazy race that still keeps him in the lead with 76 points against Massa's 74, while for Kubica, Raikkonen and Heidfeld, the game seems over at 58, 57 and 49 points. At Monza there is another downpour, this time lasting throughout the whole race and leading to the surprising victory of Sebastian Vettel, while all the title's contenders, except Kubica's second, collapse. With 4 races to go, there are 5 drivers in 25 points. Anything could still happen, and with this result, Kubica has given himself some hope. Singapore, however, is a farce, by all means. The contending teams are in the top 6, with Massa in front. It happens, however, that Renault developed a secret plan. Alonso makes an inexplicable early stop. Then, 2 laps later, his teammate Piquet crashes and brings out the safety car. It would be discovered after a year that all of this was a pre-planned strategy by Renault, which will lead to numerous actions. However, what follows has an important consequence for the championship. In the pits, Massa leaves with the petrol filler attached, dropping to last place and slowing down Raikkonen too. Rosberg is now in first place, but however, he was forced to stop early due to the lack of fuel, and this happened when the pit lane was closed, leading to a drive-through penalty. So Alonso wins, while Kubica is also unlucky because he has to stop in the closed pit lane too. Among chaos, Hamilton is third, while Raikkonen wastes the last chance of his season by crashing with 4 laps to go. With 3 races left, we found ourselves with Hamilton making the decisive move. There are 7 points of advantage, the highest margin since the first races in which Raikkonen's mini break took place. As if this World Championship couldn't be crazier, chaos happens at Fuji again. Hamilton, who lost the title the year before in even more favourable conditions, feels the pressure, and at the start, he sends Raikkonen off the track, losing several places as well, and leaving Kubica in the lead over Alonso, Kovalainen and Trulli. Massa, who qualified badly, hits Hamilton in an attempt to defend himself and takes a penalty. At that point, Hamilton is at the back too, and receives the penalty for the turn 1 maneuver. This leaves the title contenders in the bottom places and gives Kubica and Raikkonen a last chance to fight for the title. However, the two must score big, but with Alonso's amazing race, who this time wins on merit, they can do nothing. The situation sees Hamilton at 84, with Massa 79 and Kubica still in the game at 72. In the constructors, Ferrari 142, McLaren 135, BMW 128. 2 races left. In China, however, Hamilton gets pole again, but this time he makes no slips. Kubica is only 6th, while Massa benefits from Raikkonen's contribution to finish 2nd. 7 points separate Hamilton and Massa in Brazil, the same points that separated Hamilton and Raikkonen the year before. In such a crazy and balanced season, everything is still open. The problem for Ferrari is that the BMWs do not give the hopeful helping hand, and Hamilton is 4th in qualifying, with Jarno Trulli separating the two in front. It rains, but it is drizzles, those you cannot feel, but which force a delayed start. When the rain increases and you can finally start, everything proceeds normally until the change to dry tires. You are fighting for a title. You cannot take many risks. Ferrari is in a better position, as Massa has a big lead in the race. But Hamilton takes his time, and rejoins 4th after he gets rid of slower cars that stopped earlier. Lewis has to finish in the top 5. This means he can even have a bonus for losing another position. In fact, Sebastian Vettel comes from behind and hunts him. It all seems to be ending like this. But there is one last exciting shock for this endless season. It starts to rain again, a few laps from the end. And it is again that annoying rain that you hardly feel. Everyone stops, however. Everyone except the Toyotas, particularly Glock, who by doing so climbs up to 4th, ahead of Hamilton. Another position is needed for Massa, who in the meantime is going to take a well-deserved victory. This happens. Hamilton runs off, and Vettel, after relentless pressure, says thank you. It is the 3rd to last lap. Hamilton now has to do everything possible to get him back, but he can't. It's a repeat of last year. But just as Massa crosses the finish line for victory, it rains hard enough. 40 seconds behind the leader, with the Ferrari garage already celebrating, Glock, on dry tires, starts struggling. He is recovered by Vettel and Hamilton, who overtake him on the last corner and give Formula 1 one of the most unthinkable scenarios. At the last corner of the last lap, Hamilton takes the place that gives him a world championship and which leaves Massa and all the Brazilian people with a badly broken heart. As Hamilton wins the title, in the long run, it turned out to be a fight of 2, but it was a season that saw 7 different winners and 5 drivers contending for the title for several months. Hamilton won it by 1 point, with 98 out of Massa's 97, while Ferrari had to settle for the Constructors' title. There were many mistakes and non-finishes for the leaders. Massa will lament the 5 non-finishes as he won most races of all. The balance in 2009 would be completely distorted, and there would be no more opportunities for BMW to win. So the curtain falls. It has undoubtedly been one of the most exciting endings the sport has ever seen.